The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Welcome to The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Wold. We got a great show for you and a lot of topics, but first we got to get to our guests. Greg Buchanan, my co-host, of course, CPCA radio announcer, and Junior Reed Bandits General Manager. How are you?
Not too bad. We're waiting for the snow to disappear to get some wagon racing going here.
Well, you know what? I don't know necessarily if this is the guy we have to talk to in order to get that done. But you are MLA of Vermilion, Lloydminster, and Richard Starkey. We're awesome to have you on the show.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Although Mother Nature hasn't really agreed, have you tried to talk to her and see if you could come to a reasonable resolution?
I don't have those kinds of connections.
If you did.
If I'd like to. Even if I'd like to. Yeah. I'd have some farmers talking to me right now, I think.
All right, guys. Well, we'll get to a serious note, and it was a landmark day yesterday. Jason Collins, a veteran in the NBA, 12 seasons, a journeyman, came out saying that he was a homosexual. Considering that he's the first professional athlete of the 4 major sports that we have in the Americas. Is this a landmark day, and how significant is Collins coming out? Especially, he's not a guy who's retired. He's still playing. He's a free agent right now, but is still technically a professional in his sport as we speak.
I don't think it's as big a deal as it might have been 10 or 15 years ago, frankly. And I mean, as far as sport goes, sport should be talent driven. And if you have the talent to play and if you have the talent to be on a team, then I think other factors should be meaningless. I mean, we've broken down the race barrier, whatever other barriers have been in sport have been systematically broken down based on the talent of the player. I mean, there was a time in society where African-American ball players didn't play baseball, and Jackie Robinson broke that, 60, 70 years ago. And, this, to me, shouldn't be an issue, and I don't think it'll be an issue, quite frankly.
It is historical in its significance that this is a guy still a professional in his sport. This is some guy who's just retired. He's a free agent, but he hasn't retired just yet. So he's still in his sport. This has a lot of significance, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it takes a lot of courage for him to come out. At the same time, there's going to be other players out there. Who's kidding who? There's only one professional homosexual athlete in pro sports. I have my doubts about that, but there's a lot of guys that are not coming out. Maybe this will bring him out. I wouldn't hold your breath, because when it comes down to it, inside that locker room, it's nothing like you've ever seen. It's a pretty guy kind of locker room, and for this to be in that dressing room, it's a homophobic society when it comes to professional sports.
Yeah. You said there was teammates though, because there's obviously, like you said, gay athletes in every sport, and they know about this, but they seem to keep it internally. I do want to get to this. I said Collins before. I've said this a few times here. He is a free agent. Recently played with the Washington Wizards. Now, if you were a general manager, or you think any general managers out there would pick him up because he is gay, you have, it's not just a player that could help your team, but a marketing aspect too, because you can get to that LGBT community. I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just saying, could you see that being a possibility, that the fact that he came out as gay, that might actually help him being signed as a player?
I think that's a stretch. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I mean, who knows? I mean, people sign athletes for all kinds of different reasons. What might it be a consideration? It might be one positive, might be negative. You don't know. You don't know that. So like I say, I come back to talent, and is he a guy that could help your basketball team? If he's a guy that could help your basketball team, and he's a big man, he's experienced. He's been on championship teams.
He's been to the NBA Finals before.
Absolutely. So
if he can play, he can play. If he's going to help your team win games, that's the bottom line. But at the same time, you don't want focus on why he's there. Besides he's playing the game. Sometimes you take that focus off the team itself, and it gets directed in I don't want to say a negative light, but at the same time, not directed, because he is just basically a basketball player. Now he's become more than just a basketball player. Thus, the focus and the attention may be directed in the wrong direction.
Don Cherry, I do want to get to this, though. We have to move on to Don Cherry. His comments, of course, is a guy who's familiar with controversy everywhere he goes, whenever he speaks. He did so on Saturday, mentioning that women should not be in the men's locker rooms because of, well, the way the guys act. And he's saying not just because he's embarrassed for her, he's embarrassed for himself because he knows how guys would react towards women. Now, Ron MacLean was saying not necessarily they should be allowed in there, much like how men should be allowed in women's locker rooms. They do it in the WNBA. What do you guys think about that? And do you think Don Cherry was right to a certain extent, just maybe didn't kind of say it in the right terms?
What, Don not saying things quite right? Yeah, you know, does that ever happen? No, Don's an outspoken and controversial figure, and that's why he's been popular for as long as he's been. I mean, when Ron and Don weren't on for that, you know, part of a season, it was like there was an uproar. You know, people like to hear, you know, the opinions stated. You know, and Don's gonna state them. Frankly, I agree with Ron on this one. I mean, you know, again, if you're a qualified reporter, gender shouldn't matter, right? And as far as the behavior in the locker room, well, I mean, you know, I think Ron's right. You know, you have some sort of, you know, agreed upon code of, you know, professional conduct.
So there should be a code of conduct for all parties. Whenever you go to a locker room, there shouldn't be guys just walking naked out there.
Yeah, you know what? I've been,
or women for that matter.
I've been a reporter. I've been in an NHL dressing room doing interviews, and for the most part, players aren't walking around naked. It's a workplace. It's a workplace for me as a reporter. It's a workplace for them as a player. They're going to take it as professional as possible. I never saw any kind of incidents like that where a player was, you know, negative towards either a male or female reporter. And Don Cherry's like the Uncle Si of CBC. So if you watch Duck Dynasty, the only thing missing is a beard.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Stanley Cup and, of course, several Canadian teams involved in this year's. Stay tuned.